listen up. Because these basketball girls are leaving for a victory tonight at 1:20, we're going to get going. All right. What's the last thing we talked about yesterday, Shania, my dear?
Wait, what time? 1:20.
What was the last statement I made? Preparing for a final battle with the Red Sticks after months of fighting. Okay, here we go. The final battle between Andrew Jackson and the Tennessee Militia and the Red Sticks took place in the Mississippi Territory. Took place in the Mississippi Territory. The final battle.
Is this still the same subtopic?
Final battle between General Jackson and the Tennessee Militia and the Red Sticks, Radical Creek Indians, took place in the Mississippi Territory. Now, even though it says Mississippi Territory, it was actually in present-day Alabama, because the Mississippi Territory encompassed both present-day Mississippi and present-day Alabama. So although the battle took place in the Mississippi Territory, it actually took place location-wise in present-day Alabama. And it was near the Tallapoosa River at Horseshoe Bend in Alabama. So the final battle against the Red Sticks took place in the Mississippi Territory in present-day Alabama near the Tallapoosa River at Horseshoe Bend in Alabama. Now this is kind of a little bit of an ironic story if you compare it to Jackson in the War of 1812, because in this particular battle, the Red Sticks, which were about 1,000 strong, constructed that, what they called a breastwork fortification that was 8 feet high. Remember when in the War of 1812, who established the fortification out of dirt and wood? Jackson. Well, in this particular battle, it was the Red Sticks that built this, what they called a breastwork fortification. Now, breastwork fortification means that you can fire within it. So what did they do to allow places to put their guns to fire? They built this fortification. What they have in the wall? Portholes was what they called them. So they could shoot through the portholes at Jackson and his men. So the Red Sticks, some 1,000 strong, had constructed a breastwork fortification. It was 8 feet high, and it was prepared with portholes to protect itself from attack and in allowing them to shoot out the portholes themselves. Okay? But it was 8 feet high. Now this is, see if this jogs your history memory. Maybe it will, maybe it won't. Jackson's army was about 1,500, and they were both militia and regular army. So he received some regular army reinforcements for this final conflict with the Red Sticks. Okay? So he had 1,500 strong, which was a combination of the Tennessee militia and the regular U.S. Army. Okay? So he's going to be commanding both. Anybody want to guess who the highest ranking officer in the regular army was during this battle that you'll hear about later? Sam Houston. Okay, that ends up being involved in the Alamo aftermath and such. So the man that was the highest ranking officer in the regular army with Jackson was Lieutenant Sam Houston. Yeah. Just I put LT period. LT period. Now, Jackson was no fool. Not only did he have 1,500 men, a combo of militia and regular army, he enlisted the support of 1,500 Indians. That would be what? Enemies of the Red Stick. Okay? So he enlists the help of 1,500 Indians. And they're from the Cherokee tribe, the Creek tribe that were loyal to the white man, so to speak, and the Choctaw tribe. So he had 1,500 Indians supporting him from the Cherokee, Creek, and Choctaw tribes. So he really has a force of how many? Around 3,000. Okay, around 3,000. compared to the 1,000 Red Sticks. So, on March 27th of 1814, March 27th of 1814, the Battle of Horseshoe Bend began. On March 27th, 1814, the Battle of Horseshoe Bend began. I'll tell you the story. I'll win.
What kind of forts do they construct?
The battle started at 10:30 a.m. that morning, when Jackson's two small cannons battered the log fortification. Unfortunately, his battering of that fortification had little effect on the walls. They did a really nice job of building this fortification. So at 10:30 a.m. on March 27, 1814, Jackson commenced firing two small cannons at the Red Stick fortification, really to no avail, and very little effect on the walls at all. Well, seeing that, Jackson's plan is he took those Indian allies and he had them cross the river 3 miles downstream and attacked the Red Stick fortification from where? Behind. Okay, so knowing that this cannon fire is not doing him much good, he sends these Indian allies across the Tallapoosa River about 3 miles downstream and then has them attack the Red Sticks from behind. Well, once he gets the Red Sticks attacking from behind, he launches his main army right at the heart of the fortification. So they're hitting it from back and front at the same time. Now, who led the frontal attack, do you think? Houston did, yep. So the frontal attack or assault was led by Lieutenant Houston, and he was severely wounded, but survived. So Lieutenant Sam Houston leads the frontal attack at this fortification, and he is severely wounded, but survives. He was shot, he was sabred, which means he was slashed with a saber, and wounded by arrows, and to the point where he had to be dragged off by his men. So he leads the attack, he's shot, sabred, and shot with arrows, and his men drag him off. And it looked at that point like there's no way he's surviving, but he survived. He was a tough old bird and survived. It took Jackson's men over 5 hours before they finally forced themselves where? Over the walls and into the fortification. But they fought 5 hours before Jackson got his men to have the ability to get over. Because as they were trying to get over for those 5 hours, what were they doing? Shooting them, yeah. Sabred them. Everything. So again, Jackson's men finally managed to force themselves across the top of the barrier after fighting the Red Sticks for over 5 hours. And the fighting was just horrific. 800 Red Stick Indians were killed in this battle. 800. How many did they have? 1,000, yeah. 800 were killed. The Tallapoosa River ran on, not kidding, red with blood. It was red with the blood of the Creek Indians. Now this is kind of amazing to me. Guess how many men Jackson lost total? 6. He lost 6 men. 6 men. Kind of hard to believe. 6 men. He lost 6 men killed in this bloody fight. It was unbelievable. 6 men. 800 Red Sticks killed.
Does that count the Indians that attacked from behind?
But they were more of a distraction, to be honest with you. No, he lost 6 men. Didn't count Indian casualties, but there were not many. So following the battle, Jackson goes and camps. And one lone Red Stick Indian entered Jackson's camp with a peace offering. And it was a slain deer. So one Red Stick Indian, after the battle, enters Jackson's camp with a peace offering, and the peace offering was a slain deer. Who was it? It was William Weatherford. So William Weatherford, after the battle, entered Jackson's camp with a peace offering, which turned out to be a slain buck deer. And Weatherford told Jackson, if I had 800 more men, we would still be fighting. Told him that. Walked into camp, pretty ballsy, so to speak. Walked into camp to a guy that could kill him like this, and told him with the peace offering of a slain buck deer, if I had 800 more men, we would still be fighting. What do you think Jackson's reaction to that was? What?
No,
What's that?
I don't know.
No, say it.
I don't know.
You're going to be right. What do you think?
He nodded.
Well, he might have nodded. He had a great admiration for Weatherford's leadership and courage for doing that. And he honored him in defeat. He accepted his peace offering, which he didn't have to do with the slain buck deer. He admired his leadership and courage. He honored him in defeat, and what did he finally do? Let him what? Let him go. Didn't take him prisoner, anything, just let him go. So Jackson admired Weatherford's leadership and courage, even though he was a bit rude to him to a point. He honored him in defeat, he accepted his peace offering, and let him go. That is the final battle with the Red Sticks and Andrew Jackson. That'll take us for our next subtopic, which is Jackson's fight for Florida. Do we still own all of Florida? No, we just have basically what part of Florida? Western part, yeah, and around the Gulf. Well, was Jackson done fighting Indians after he fought the Red Sticks and defeated them? No. He continued his campaign against the Red Sticks. Or not against the Red Sticks. He continued his assault of Indians after his defeat of the Red Sticks. Who's his next target? What Indians? Think about the subtopic. Oh, no. The Seminole Indians of Florida. Okay? You get it? Florida State Seminoles? Yeah. So his next assault will be with the Seminole Indians of Florida. Now this is kind of interesting. Who's the President of the United States now? Anybody want to tell me? No. Who's the President of the United States in 1814, 15, that area? How about Monroe? Yep. Jackson gained permission from President Monroe to engage the Seminoles. Because what do they want? Florida. Who else is supporting the Seminoles and has claims on Florida? Say it. Spanish. So President Monroe gives General Jackson permission to engage not only the Seminole Indians living in Florida, but any Spanish who are still staying there claiming ties to the region, and there were. So Jackson not only goes after the Seminole Indians in Florida, he goes after any Spaniards that have decided to stay. Most had gone, but there are still some there claiming lands. Now Jackson's goal was pretty easy. He was going to run both parties out of Florida and claim the land for who? The United States, no question. Well, Jackson and his men were again victorious. They ran both the Seminoles and the Spanish out of Florida, claiming the area for the United States. Guess what Monroe appointed Jackson after his victory over the Seminoles and the Spanish in Florida? What did he appoint him? Think about it. What do you make him? The new state. What do you make him? Governor of the new state. He appointed Jackson governor of Florida, and he took 11 weeks to establish a state government there. And as soon as he established a state government in Florida as governor, he resigned the governorship and went where? Back home to Tennessee. Back to his plantation. So after his victory in Florida over the Seminoles and any Spanish that claimed any land there, Jackson was appointed governor of Florida. He was governor for about 11 weeks. His goal was to establish a state government there. As soon as he did, he retired back to his plantation in Tennessee. Now, we're going to talk about a political election here before you girls leave. And it's a very interesting one in American history. It's got a lot of interesting scenarios. And that's the election of 1824. Election of 1824. Now, what is Jackson's victory over the British at New Orleans in the War of 1812 and his successes against the Indians made him in America? A hero, very popular and a national hero. So he's popped upon the national scene. And so many of Jackson's followers are wanting him to run for President of the United States. So in 1824, he decides to make a move at the presidency. Okay? So again, because of Jackson's popularity with his victories in the War of 1812, especially at New Orleans, and the idea that he has conquered the hostile Indians and paved the way for Florida to become a state, he becomes very popular, and his supporters press him to run for the presidency, which he decides to do in 1824. Now this is kind of interesting. What party is stinking it up bad at this time? Yeah, they're not even in the picture. Matter of fact, they're so out of the picture, they're not even going to take part in this election either. But the nominees for the Republican Party are going to be 4. So the Republican Party, knowing they've got control over politics in America, don't have to settle for one. They're going to make a choice. So there are going to be 4 Republican nominees. All 4 running for the presidency. So it's a little bit different. They're going to be running against each other, and they're going to be needing a certain number of electoral votes, which in this case was 131 to become president. So you got people running against each other. It's kind of unusual. There's no other party. Well, here are the candidates. John Quincy Adams from Massachusetts. John Quincy Adams from Massachusetts. We've talked about all these guys. William H. Crawford from Georgia. William H. Crawford from Georgia. Henry Clay from Kentucky. And Andrew Jackson from Tennessee. So your nominees for the presidency, all representing the Republican Party, are John Quincy Adams from Massachusetts, William H. Crawford from Georgia, Henry Clay from Kentucky, and Andrew Jackson from Tennessee. Now, I'll tell you the popular vote. Okay, this is a popular vote. You know the popular vote, and $1.25 will buy you a pop. It doesn't mean anything. What matters? Electoral vote, right? You got to have 131 to win. So here's the popular vote. Henry Clay had approximately 45,000 votes. Approximately 45,000, Henry Clay. William H. Crawford had approximately 45,000 votes. William Crawford had about 45,000 votes. John Quincy Adams has about 108,000 votes. John Quincy Adams, 108,000 votes. And our good friend Andrew Jackson has 153,000 votes. So 45,000 for Clay, 45,000 for Crawford, 108,000 for Adams, and 153,000 for Jackson. So, who wins the presidency? What? Well, what was the number of electoral votes I said was needed? 131. Here were the electoral votes in the election. Henry Clay had 37. William Crawford had 41. John Quincy Adams had 84. And Andrew Jackson had 99. Which means no one has what? Enough, because you had to have 131. Nobody has the electoral votes for 2/3 majority. So Soraya Durant, my dear, what is going to happen? That had happened once before.
Take out the
It's
small.
gonna go to the House of Representatives by result of the 12th Amendment of the Constitution. When there are no candidate that reaches 2/3 majority of electoral votes, it would go to the House of Representatives. Now, at this time, they also had another little rule that only the top 3 vote getters would go to the House for consideration, which means who's out? Clay's out. Very good, good point. Makes a good point. So Clay's out because only the top 3 get considered. So Clay's out. Well, Clay, who has great support in the House, decides he's going to throw his support behind one of the candidates. Okay? And it's going to make a difference. And who's he going to throw his support to? John Quincy Adams. Okay? Clay has tremendous support in the House. So he begins to campaign on the side for John Quincy Adams, talking to his buddies in the House about voting for him. And as a result of Clay's efforts, Adams is elected the 6th President of the United States. Kind of a funny looking fellow, but there he is. Guess who his Vice President is?
Jackson.
Will?
Jackson.
Will?
William.
Who?
William.
No, who you said?
Every time I want this answer, I call on you. Who is his Vice Presidential? Who becomes the Vice President?
William Carter.
No, I ask you this every time. I always ask you when I want this name.
Oh.
Who'd you do the
John C. Calhoun.
John C. Calhoun. So John C. Calhoun becomes the Vice President. And everybody's happier than a pig in what? You know what I mean? Not true. Because it leads us to our next subtopic, which is what?